This is Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search for my site. Reading from Rolling Stone magazine, explosive report on UVA rape. It's a year old. I'm reading it on the occasion of a follow-up story from Vanity Fair. The Rolling Stone report was discredited soon after it was published. I was duped by this story. I accepted it as factual reporting, and I've come to accept it as discredited. I will read the Vanity Fair also. This is part three. I'll read the Vanity part also after this and add it to my YouTube channel. The same people appear referenced in both stories, and because it's different writers, it's different publications, sometimes a reference is different. It gets confusing. To help, I've included a short roster of the key people of the two stories, of the one story and the two publications, and that's in the text attached to this YouTube audio. So I will begin part three. I will have no more of my own comments. It's exclusively that of Rolling Stone. By the end of freshman year, Jackie found herself in the Peabody Hall office of Dean Nicole Eramo, head of UVA's Sexual Assault Misconduct Board. It was a big step for Jackie. She hadn't even managed to tell her own mother exactly what happened at Phi Kappa Psi. Upon returning to school her second semester, Jackie had tried to put on a brave face and simply move forward, but instead continued falling apart. Though a psychiatrist had put Jackie on Wellbutrin, she had remained depressed, couldn't concentrate, spent her semester so frightened and withdrawn that her academic dean finally called her to discuss why she had failed three classes. In her office, with her mother beside her, she burst into tears, and her mother explained she had a bad experience at a party. He'd blanched and given Jackie an email from Dean Eramo. If Dean Eramo was surprised at Jackie's story of getting gang raped, it didn't show. A short woman with curly, dark hair and no-nonsense demeanor, Eramo surely had among the most difficult job at UVA as an intake person on behalf of the university for all sexual assault complaints. Since 2006, it was her job to deal with a parade of sobbing students trekking in and out of her office. UVA declined to make Eramo available for comment. A UVA alum herself, Eramo is beloved by survivors and who have considered her friend and confidant, even though only a few students are aware her office isn't a confidential space at all. Each time a new complaint comes through Eramo's office, it activates a review by UVA's Title IX office. Is included in UVA's tally of federally mandated Clearly Act crime statistics. Cleary Act crime statistics, and Eramo may at her discretion reveal details of her conversation with the student and other administrators. Jackie was mortified to learn that Eramo had shared her identity with another UVA administrator. After all, the dean's foremost priority is the overall safety of the campus. Jackie says when she asked why UVA's rape stats were hard to find, the dean said because nobody wants to send their daughter to the rape school. Jackie finished talking, Eramo confronted her, then calmly laid out her option. Jackie wished she could file a criminal complaint with police, or if Jackie preferred to keep the matter within the university, she had two choices. She could file a complaint with the school's sexual misconduct board to be decided in a formal resolution with a jury of students and faculty and a dean as judge, or Jackie could choose an informal resolution in which Jackie could simply face her attackers in Eramo's presence and tell them how she felt. Eramo could then issue a directive to the men, such as suspending, counseling. Eramo presented each option to Jackie, naturally giving each equal weight. She assumed Jackie there was no She assured Jackie there was no pressure. Whatever happened next was entirely her choice. Like many schools, UVA had taken to emphasizing that in matters of sexual assault, it caters to victims' choice. If a student feels that they're forcing them into a criminal or disciplinary process they don't want to be part of, frankly, we're concerned that we would get fewer reports, says Associate VP for Student Affairs Susan Davis, which in theory makes sense. Being forced into an unwanted choice is a sensitive point for the victims, but in practice, the lack of guidance can be counterproductive to a 19-year-old so traumatized as Jackie that she was contemplating suicide. Setting aside for a moment the absurdity of schools of offering to handle the investigation and adjudication of a felony sex crime, something Title IX requires, but which no university on earth is equipped to do, the sheer menu of choices, paired with a reassurance that any choice is the right one, often has the end result of coating the victims into doing nothing. This is alarming trend that I'm seeing on campus, says Laura Dunn, an advocacy group, Serve Justice. Schools are assigning people to victims who are pretending or even thinking they're on the victim's side when they're actually discouraging and silencing them. Advocates whose survivors love are part of the system that is failing to address sexual violence. Absent much guidance, Jackie would eventually wonder how the other student victims handled their situation. But when she clicked around UVA's website, she found no answers. All she found were the UVA police crime logs, which the university makes available online, but are mostly a list of bike theft, vandalism, public drunkenness, and complaints. That's because only a fraction of UVA students who report sex crimes turn to campus police. The rest go to Dean Eramo's office, Charlottesville Police, or the county sheriff's office. Yet, when RS asked UVA for statistics, the press office repeatedly referred us to UVA police crime logs. UVA parent Susan Russell believes that misdirection is deliberate. And when parent goes to the campus crime log and they don't see sexual assaults, they think the school is safe. Russell says, adding that her daughter's 2004 sexual assault once appeared in a log mislabeled suspicious circumstances. Eventually, UVA's furnishing Rolling Stone with some of its most recent tally. Last academic year, 38 students went to Eramo about sexual assault, up from about 20 students 3 years ago. However, of the 38, only 9 resulted in complaints. The 29 students evaporated. Of those 9, complaints from result of sexual misconduct board wasn't willing to disclose the outcome, citing privacy. Like the college sexual assault proceedings, the UVA unfold in total secrecy. Asked why UVA doesn't publish all the data, President Sullivan explains that it might not be in keeping with best practices and thus may inadvertently discourage reporting. Jackie got a different explanation when she'd eventually asked Dean Eramo the same question. She says Eramo answered wearily because nobody wants to send their daughter to a rape school. For now, however, Jackie left her first meeting with Eramo feeling better for having unburdened herself, and with Dean's assurance that had nothing would be done without her say so. Eramo's email, a follow up note thanking Jackie for sharing, saying, I could tell that it was difficult for you, and restating that while she respected Jackie's wish not to file a report, she'd be happy to assist if she decided to, to report. Would like to if she would like to hold these men accountable. In the meantime, having presumed largely there would be no threat to public safety, the UVA administration took action to warn the campus of the alleged gang rape having made against an active fraternity. All the first year women, normally uptight, they never do a single thing unless they know it's right. But then they come to Rugby Road and soon they see the light. And they never know how many men they'll bring home every night. Rugby Road. Now you can trace UVA's cycle of sexual violence and institutional indifference back 30 years. Incredible, the trial leads back to FISI. Incredibly, the trail leads back to FISI. October 1984, Liz Sakuro, 17-year-old virgin, and she went to a party, a frat, and was handed a mixed drink. They called it a house special. She remembers things became spotty after Securio had a few sips, but etched in pain was clear memory of raping stranger raping her on a bed. She woke up wrapped in a bloody sheet by rifling through the boy's mail. Before fleeing, she discovered the name was Will Baby. Incredibly, 21 years later, Baby wrote Securio a letter saying he wanted to make amends as part of his 12-step program. Securio took the correspondence to Charlottesville police in the midst of 2009 prosecution that followed, where Baby would eventually plead guilty to aggravated sexual assault. Investigators made a startling discovery that while the FISI party that night, Securio had been assaulted not by one man, but by three. I'd been gang raped, said Sakuro, who detailed her ordeal in 2011 memoir. That it took 2 decades for Sakuro to achieve some justice is even more disgraceful, since she reported her rape to the UVA administration after leaving the Phi house in 1984 morning. I went to Dean covered with scabs and broken ribs, she remembered. And he said, "Do you think it was just regrettable sex?" Sakuro wanted to call police, but she was incorrectly told that Charlottesville police had no jurisdiction over the fraternity houses. If Sakuro's story of administration's cover-up and apathy sounds outrageous, it's actually keeping with the stories told by other UVA survivors. After one alum was abducted from a dark wooded section of campus and raped in 1993, she says she asked UVA administrators for better lighting. They told me it would ruin Jefferson's vision of what the university was supposed to look like. The alumni says, as if Thomas Jefferson knew about electric lights. 2002 and 2004, two female students, including Susan Russell's daughter, were unhappy with their sexual misconduct hearings, which each felt didn't hold the alleged perpetrators accountable, and each was admonished by UVA administrators to never speak publicly about the proceedings, or else they would face expulsion for violating the honor code. For issuing the directive in 2008, UVA was found in violation of the Clery Act. UVA is more egregious than most, since John Fobert, UVA Dean from 98 to 2002, and founder of National Male Sex Assault Peer Education Group 1 and 4. I've worked for 5 or 6 colleges, and the stuff I saw happen during my time definitely stands out. For example, Forbert calls one rare case in which the university applied a harsh penalty. An undergraduate was suspended for stalking 5 students. Heated discussions ensued over whether the boy should be allowed back after his suspension, though the counseling center wanted him to stay gone. Forbert says the then D students argued in favor of his returning. We can pick our lawsuit from a potential 6 victims or from him from denying him access to an education. The few stories leaked out of UVA's present-day justice system aren't much better. One student whose Title IX complaint against UVA is currently under investigation by the Office of Civil Rights in December 2011, another student raped while she was blacked out drunk, possibly drugged. As she wrote the student publication, evidence emerged that the man had been previously accused of drugging others, but the information was rejected as prejudicial. The Sexual Misconduct Board told young women, I found her compelling and believable, but I found the man not guilty. I never felt so betrayed or let down in my life, wrote the woman. They said they believed me. They said UVA was my home and that it loved me. Yet How could they believe me and let him go completely unpunished? Rolling Stone has discovered that the past spring, a UVA first year student, whom we'll call Stacy, filed a report stating that while vomiting up too much whiskey into a male friend's toilet one night, he groped her, plunged his hands down her sweatpants, then carrying her semi-conscious to his bed, digitally penetrated her. When the Charlottesville DA office declined to file charges, she says Stacy asked for a hearing with the Sexual Misconduct Board and was surprised when UVA authority figures tried to talk her out of it. My counselors, member of Dean Student Office, Stacy insisted upon removing forward anyways. When the wealthy family of the accused kicked up a fuss, they threatened to sue Deans individually. They threatened to sue me, she recalls, but Stacy remained stalwart because she had an additional motivation. She'd been shaken to discover that other women with stories of assault by the same man. One was days after mine at a rush function at his frat house. Stacy says, so I was like, I have to do something before someone else is hurt. Her determination redoubled after the dean of student office informed her that multiple assaults by a student would have grounds for his expulsion, a mantra that Eramo repeated to take back the night event in April. Jackie came across something disturbing. Two other women confided that they too had been victims of Phi Kappa Psi gang rapes. Bearing her dean's words in mind, at her 9-hour formal hearing in June, Stacy took pains to present not only her own case, but also the other two. Allegations submitting witness statements that were allowed in pattern evidence, the board pronounced the man guilty for sexual misconduct against Stacy, making him only the 14th guilty person in UVA's history. Stacy was relieved at the verdict. I was like, he's gone because he's a multiple assailant. I've been told so many times that that was ground for expulsion. So she was stunned when she learned the actual penalty, a 1-year suspension. Citing privacy laws, UVA would not comment on this or any case. Turns out when UVA's personnel speak of expulsion for multiple assaults, they mean multiple complaints that have been filed with the Sexual Misconduct Board. And the adjudicated guilty. Under that more precise definition, the two other cases introduced in Stacy's case didn't count toward his penalty. Stacy feels offended by the outcome and misled by the deans. After 2 rapes and an assault, to let him back on grounds is an insult to the honor system that UVA brags about, she says. UVA doesn't want to expel. They're afraid about getting negative publicity or the pants suit off them. That's one quarter, another quarter of the text. So it looks like I'm going to read this in 4 parts. This is the end of part 3. This has been Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search from my site. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, good evening, or restful night's sleep. Ciao.